Imagine getting to the absolute highest tier of heaven, spending millions of years in unimaginable bliss, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, your cosmic credits run out.
Right? Just completely depleted.
Yeah, and you are just evicted back to Earth to start all over again. Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm your host, and today we are unpacking something huge.
I'm your expert for today, and yeah, we are looking at a source text that claims standard merit-based religion is actually, well, it's a trap.
A total trap. We're looking at this incredible research report called The Journey of the Devotee, from Saguna to Nirguna and Purnavatar, and it maps out the ultimate mind-bending roadmap to breaking out of the spiritual matrix entirely.
It really is a phenomenal document to explore because, I mean, it subverts almost everything we are taught about the afterlife.
Yeah.
We usually treat spiritual destinations as these final endpoints, right? You pass the test, you walk through the pearly gates, and you're done.
You just retire on a cloud.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the text we are diving into today argues that reaching the divine realm is, it's really merely the orientation phase.
Wow, just the orientation.
Yeah, of a much larger, infinitely more complex cosmic operation. We are charting a course from our current everyday physical reality.
Which the text calls Muthayuluk, right? The mortal realm.
Right, Mythiuluk, charting it all the way to the absolute edges of infinite consciousness, and then mapping the shocking events that happen after you reach that infinity.
Which is just wild to think about. I want to set the stage for you, the listener, right up front, because the sheer scale of what we're talking about today can feel, I don't know, pretty intimidating.
Oh, absolutely. It's massive.
Because we spend our lives just bogged down in the immediate. You're probably listening to this while navigating a commute or folding a mountain of laundry or trying to decompress from a stressful meeting.
Yeah, dealing with a daily grind.
Exactly. The daily news cycle demands our panic. Our phones demand our constant attention. But underneath all of that frantic noise, the source text suggests that every single one of us is being driven by a universal, unspoken yearning.
It's this restless, unexplainable itch.
Yes. This itch to find an ultimate, unbreakable bliss, or to feel a sense of merging with something vastly larger than our fragile individual egos.
And that fundamental restlessness. I mean, that is the engine driving human history. We try to scratch that itch with careers, with relationships, with accumulating wealth.
Buying more stuff.
Right, exactly. But the text points out that those are all just temporary balms for an internal ache. When an individual finally recognizes that the material world cannot cure that restlessness, well, that is when the journey of the devotee actually begins.
Okay, so it starts with that realization.
Yeah. And the genius of this research report is that it takes that vague, poetic longing and gives it a ruthlessly structured step-by-step framework. It operates on the premise that spiritual evolution is not random.
It's like a science.
It is. It follows precise laws of physics, just governed by consciousness rather than, like, gravity.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about the physics of consciousness, we need to look at the foundational rule governing this entire roadmap. Looking at my notes here, the source anchors its whole premise on a specific principle from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 6.
Yes, 8.6, a crucial verse.
Right. And from my understanding, this verse establishes a law of absolute cause and effect. It essentially says that whatever state of being or whatever specific emotion or thought your mind is locked onto, at the exact moment you leave your physical body.
The very moment of death.
Yeah, that exact moment. You are guaranteed to attain exactly that state in your next existence.
That verse is the fulcrum upon which the entire journey rests. I mean, it is a universe of pure, unadulterated consequence. Notice that it does not say whatever good deeds you have tallied up will determine your fate.
Right. It's not a spreadsheet of good versus bad.
Exactly. It specifically targets your deep inner focus at the finish line. If, at the moment of death, your consciousness is consumed by anxiety about your bank account or bitterness toward a relative...
Which, let's be honest, is where a lot of minds go.
Right. The text argues your soul remains anchored to the mundane frequency that generated those thoughts. However, if your consciousness is entirely saturated with the divine, your soul is magnetically drawn to that divine state. The final thought is the trajectory setting for the soul's launch.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if the ultimate deadline is our final breath, the pressure is incredibly high.
Oh, it's immense.
We can't cram for this like a college exam the night before. You can't just cross your fingers and hope to summon a profoundly peaceful, enlightened thought while your physical body is literally shutting down.
No, the body is in panic mode at that point.
Right. You have to re-engineer your baseline consciousness right now in the middle of paying taxes and dealing with traffic. So where does the source text say a normal human being even begins that kind of massive cognitive rewiring?
Well, the starting line is exactly where you and I are sitting right now, the physical realm, the earth. The text is deeply pragmatic. It acknowledges that human beings possess physical bodies and physical senses, and therefore trying to connect with an invisible, formless infinity,
It's impossible.
yeah, it's a psychological near impossibility for a beginner. So the process begins with what is called saguna worship.
Hagoon.
Right? Saguna translates to the divine with form and attributes.
Meaning we start by interacting with a version of the divine that we can actually comprehend, like a face, a personality, a history.
Exactly.
We are talking about conceptualizing the divine as Ram or Krishna or Shiva or any manifest form that invokes a sense of reverence.
The human mind requires an anchor.
Mhm.
You need an emotional hook. You cannot easily fall in love with an abstract concept like infinite consciousness.
No, it's too vast.
But you can fall deeply in love with the divine personality whose qualities inspire you. You begin by channeling your scattered attention toward this specific, tangible manifestation of the Supreme.
But the text doesn't just suggest, like, staring at a picture, though. It lays out a massive, 9-part operational manual for how to forge this connection.
Yes, drawn from the Srimad Bhagavat Purana, specifically section 7.5.23.
Right. It's called Navda Bhakti, or the Ninefold Path of Devotion. And I really want us to take our time here and unpack every single one of these 9 steps.
We should, they are critical.
Because for anyone listening, this isn't just ancient trivia. This is the actual toolkit. If you skip these tools, nothing else in the massive cosmic journey we are about to discuss is even possible.
That's right. These 9 practices are the methodology for hacking your own attention. They are designed to systematically overwrite your default worldly programming with divine programming. Let's examine the first pair, which deal with our most primary methods of consuming and producing information.
Okay.
That's Shravanam and Kirtanam.
Right. So Shravanam is the act of hearing divine stories, and Kirtanam is chanting the divine names. If we look at Shravanam through a modern lens, it feels incredibly relevant.
Oh, totally.
Because we live in an era of doom scrolling. We consume outrage, tragedy, gossip all day long through our news feeds and social media. Our brains are just marinated in a constant audiovisual stream of anxiety.
And that takes a toll.
It does. Shravanam is the conscious, deliberate act of curating your input. It's choosing to listen to narratives of divine grace, cosmic play, and profound compassion instead.
The psychological impact of that curation cannot be overstated. You become the stories you consume. If you constantly ingest narratives of human betrayal and societal collapse, well, your worldview becomes cynical and defensive.
Yeah, you see threats everywhere.
Exactly. By practicing Shravanam, you are introducing a completely different data set to your subconscious. You are providing your mind with evidence of a benevolent, beautiful reality. And then Kirtanam amplifies that process.
Chanting.
Right? Chanting isn't just reciting a mantra in your head. It is a physical vibration. You are using your own breath and vocal cords to push the name of the divine out into the physical space around you.
It's an active reclamation of your environment. You aren't just a passive receiver anymore. You are a broadcaster.
Exactly. You're changing the frequency of the room.
And that active broadcasting leads into the third step, which seems to be where the real heavy lifting begins.
Smarana.
Yes, Maranam. The text defines this as continuous remembrance. Now, that word continuous is what trips me up.
Yeah.
How do you maintain an unbroken stream of divine remembrance when you have to, say, write a complex quarterly report for your boss?
It's a great question. Smaranam represents a fundamental shift in the architecture of your mind. In the beginning stages of spiritual practice, devotion is usually compartmentalized, right?
Right. You meditate for 20 minutes in the morning and then you put it away.
And go be a stressed-out employee for 8 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Smaranam is the process of taking that devotion out of the compartment and letting it run as the underlying operating system of your life. Think of a computer. You have the active window where you are typing your report, but in the background, your antivirus software is quietly running, constantly scanning and protecting the system.
Oh, I like that.
Smaranam is the cultivation of a quiet, subtle current of divine presence that runs beneath all your worldly activities.
It's the background music of your consciousness.
Exactly.
And once that internal music is playing constantly, it dictates how you interact with the external world, which takes us to the fourth step, Padasavanam. The literal translation is serving the divine feet, but my notes indicate the source expands this to mean serving every single particle of creation.
Yes, this is a brilliant psychological pivot. The mind naturally categorizes things into sacred and profane. The temple is sacred. The grocery store is profane. The altar is sacred.
The dirty dishes in the sink are profane.
Right. Padasavatam shatters that duality entirely. If you truly believe the divine is omnipresent, then the entire physical universe is the body of the divine. Therefore, sweeping the floor, tending to a garden, or treating a rude cashier with unexpected kindness.
Those are all acts of direct service to the Supreme.
Exactly.
For you listening right now, this is the ultimate life hack for spiritual burnout. You don't have to quit your job and move to a monastery to serve the divine. You just have to change the internal mechanism of why you are doing your job.
Yes.
You can file paperwork as an act of cosmic service if your intention is pure. But even with that expansive view, the text still insists on the necessity of formal structure, which brings us to the fifth and sixth steps.
Arkanam and Vandanam.
Right.
Arkanam is ritual worship, and Vandanam is the act of bowing with absolute surrender. Even as the devotee begins to see the divine in the mundane world, the human sensory system still craves concentrated focal points.
We need something physical to latch onto.
Yeah. Arkanam provides a dedicated time and space to overwhelm the senses with devotion. You use incense to capture the sense of smell, bells for hearing, specific postures for touch, and the visual beauty of the deity for sight. You are gathering all your scattered sensory inputs and pointing them like a laser at the divine form.
And the psychology of Vandanam, the physical act of bowing, is fascinating. I mean, we hold so much tension in our posture, constantly trying to stand tall, protect our egos, project dominance or competence.
It's exhausting.
It really is. So when you drop to the floor and place your head below your heart, you are sending a massive, undeniable signal to your own nervous system. You are physically pantomiming the surrender of your ego.
You're bypassing the intellect entirely.
Right. You are telling your body, I am not the supreme controller of this universe, and I am yielding to the one who is.
The physical action bypasses the intellectual defenses. You can tell yourself you are humble all day long, but physically prostrating yourself enforces that reality on a cellular level. It prepares the internal landscape for the final three steps of Navda Bhakti, which move away from actions and entirely into relationship dynamics.
Okay, the relationship stages.
Yes. We enter the realms of Dasyam, Sakyam, and Atmanivedanam.
Let's break those down. Dasyam is characterized as serving as a dedicated servant. The source points to Hanuman, the legendary figure from the Ramayana, as the ultimate embodiment of this. It's a mindset where the devotee finds absolute, unadulterated joy in simply being an instrument.
Right.
We spend so much energy trying to be the main character of our own lives, stressing over our legacy and our desires. Dasyam sounds like the immense relief of deciding you are thrilled to just be a supporting cast member in the divine play. There is no entitlement.
The relief of shedding the burden of personal ambition is profound. A true servant of the divine doesn't negotiate for a better position. They find their ultimate fulfillment in executing the will of the beloved perfectly.
Wow.
But the roadmap allows for different relational temperaments. For some, the hierarchy of servitude feels too distant. That is where Sakyam comes in.
Friendship.
Yes, this is treating the divine as your closest, most intimate friend, much like the dynamic between Arjuna and Krishna in the Mahabharata.
I love the concept of Sakyam because a true friendship is inherently horizontal, not vertical. A friend is someone you can be completely vulnerable with. You can complain to a friend, you can argue with a friend, you can joke around with them.
You don't have to put on a performance.
Exactly. It takes the stiff, terrified formality out of religion. You aren't cowering before a cosmic judge. You are walking side by side with your ultimate confidant.
It creates a bond of profound intimacy and trust. And whether you approach the divine as a master or as a friend, all of these paths inevitably converge on the ninth and final step.
Avataar.
This is the absolute, total offering of one's entire self. The intellect, the body, the soul, the past karma, the future destiny.
Everything.
Everything is handed over without a single condition.
It is the ultimate terrifying leap. You are tossing the keys to your entire existence across the table and saying, you drive.
That's a great way to put it.
When I look at this entire 9-part framework of Navda Bhakti, it looks remarkably similar to the modern psychological concept of love languages.
Oh, that's an interesting connection.
Right. Humans express and receive love differently. Words of affirmation map perfectly to hearing stories and chanting, so Shravanam and Kirtanam. Acts of service align with treating the world as the divine feet, Parasavanam. Quality time is the continuous background remembrance, Smalanam.
That's spot on.
The text is basically offering us 9 distinct spiritual love languages to ensure that no matter your personality type, you have a precise method for building an unbreakable bond with the universe.
That framing captures the holistic genius of the system perfectly. The roadmap leaves no aspect of the human experience unaddressed. Through these 9 practices, the devotee methodically saturates their subconscious. So, returning to that foundational rule from the Bhagavad Gita,
About your final thought dictates your destination.
right, you can see how this preparation guarantees the outcome. When the moment of physical death arrives, the devotee doesn't need to panic or force a peaceful thought. Their consciousness is already running entirely on the divine operating system.
The homing beacon has been perfectly calibrated. Okay, let's unpack this next phase. The body drops away, and the soul is launched. According to the text, they are propelled directly to the specific realm of the deity they worshipped. If they practiced Navda Bhakti, focusing on Krishna, they arrive in Golok. If they focused on Ram, they go to Sakitlok. If Shiva, they arrive in Shivlok. The collective term the text uses is the Ishtalok.
The realm of the chosen ideal.
Right, and this is where the standard religious narrative usually rolls the end credits. You put in the hard work on earth, you shifted your consciousness, you died, and you woke up in your personalized version of heaven.
That's what we're all taught to expect.
But as I read further into the source material, I realized this is the exact moment the roadmap introduces a terrifying plot twist. Reaching the divine realm is not the end. The moment you step foot in the Ishtalok, you are confronted with a massive cosmic fork in the road.
Yes.
And your experience in heaven depends entirely on how you secured your entry ticket.
The text introduces a highly sophisticated mechanism of spiritual economics here. It contrasts 2 fundamentally different operating systems. Dev-tattva, which we can translate as the deity principle, and Guru-tattva, the guru principle. The difference between these 2 determines whether your stay in the divine realm is a permanent evolution or just a temporary vacation.
Let's aggressively unpack this, starting with the first path, Dev-tattva. My notes describe this as the merit-based journey.
Right.
If someone practiced devotion, did all their prayers, gave to charity, and accumulated a massive amount of good karma,
Punya, as it's called.
punya, okay. But they did it entirely through external rituals without a profoundly awakened inner guide, they fall under this category.
They operated within the rules of transactional spirituality. They treated the divine like a cosmic vending machine.
Put in a coin, get a blessing.
Exactly. They put in the currency of good deeds and rigorous rituals, and the universe, being perfectly fair and just, dispensed the exact reward they paid for. They are granted entry into the divine realm. They are given citizenship in the Ishtalok, where they experience unimaginable joy, peace, and the presence of the divine.
The text drops an absolute hammer here. It cites the Mundaka Upanishad, section 1.2.10, and the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 21. Both scriptures contain the exact same devastating phrase, Kishina punya martilokam vishanti. My rough translation is, when the merit is exhausted, they enter the mortal world again.
The translation is painfully accurate. The spiritual currency they accumulated on earth is finite. No matter how many millions of good deeds you performed, the number is still a measurable quantity. And as you reside in the divine realm, enjoying the bliss, you're spending down that account.
Ticking down.
The text explicitly states that once the balance hits 0, the soul is evicted. The spiritual vacation is over, and they are pulled back down by the gravity of the material world, forced to take rebirth on Earth and start the grueling cycle all over again.
The analogy that screams out to me here is a high-end arcade. Think about it. You spend your life on Earth playing all these difficult games, doing good deeds, and every time you do, a little paper ticket spits out of the machine.
Right, your punya.
Yeah. You hoard these tickets, you save up mountains of them. Finally, you die, and you take your garbage bags full of tickets to the cosmic prize counter. The attendant cashes them in and hands you a bucket of premium tokens, granting you access to the VIP lounge in the back.
The divine realm.
Exactly. You are playing the best games, the lights are flashing, the joy is intoxicating. But Dev-tattva is the horrifying realization that the bucket has a bottom. You are putting tokens into the machine, and eventually you reach in and feel empty plastic.
That's a chilling moment.
The machine flashes game over, the bouncer taps you on the shoulder, and you are thrown out the back door right onto the muddy street of mortal reality.
The arcade analogy perfectly captures the anxiety inherent in the merit-based path. Even while you are experiencing heaven, if you have the awareness that it is transactional, there is a subtle, terrifying ticking clock in the background.
Which ruins the heaven experience.
It does. It is a conditional residency. The universe gave you exactly what you earned, but not a single drop more.
For anyone listening, that is an incredibly sobering thought. The idea that you could do everything right according to standard religious dogma, make it all the way to heaven, and still end up back in traffic on a Tuesday morning in your next life.
It really changes your perspective.
So how do you bypass the arcade entirely? How do you get off the ticking clock? That brings us to the second path at this cosmic fork, Guru Tattva.
The Guru Tattva fundamentally rewrites the rules of engagement. It shifts the dynamic from a transaction to a transmission. The text explains that if a devotee awakens the guru principle, meaning they are guided by a true awakened spiritual master, whether that is an external teacher or a profound, unmistakable inner voice, they are no longer relying on their own limited bank account of merit.
The text highlights a famous quote by the mystic poet Kabir to illustrate this bypass. Kabir says, Guru govgovindukhare, kekla gumpe, balihari guru apne, govindio mile.
Yes.
If both my guru and God are standing right in front of me, whose feet do I bow to first? Kabir says, I will bow to the guru first because without the guru, I wouldn't even know who God was or how to reach him.
Kabir is pointing to the ultimate conduit. If you rely on your own ego to navigate to the divine, you are bound by the limits of your ego's actions, your merit. But the guru represents an entity that is already permanently merged with the eternal.
So it's like a direct line.
Exactly. When you forge an unseverable link with the guru, you are essentially plugging your consciousness into an infinite power grid. The text is very clear on the outcome. Those who reach the divine realm via the Guru Tattva do not face eviction. They are granted residence in the Ishtalok for kalpas, which translates to thousands of billions of years.
Wow.
It is an entirely different magnitude of existence because the connection is no longer based on what you did, but on who you are connected to.
And I appreciate that the source text is deeply practical about how a person actually finds this guru link. It doesn't insist that everyone must pack a bag and go wander the Himalayas looking for a mystic in a cave. It outlines two entirely valid, distinct traditions.
Yes, it presents the Guru Shisha tradition and the Vance tradition. The Guru Shisha path is the active seeking of a master. It is the direct transmission of profound spiritual knowledge and energy from an awakened teacher to a fiercely dedicated disciple. It requires finding a living embodiment of the divine truth and submitting entirely to their guidance.
Which is incredibly potent, but perhaps not accessible to everyone in the modern world. That is why the second option, the Vance tradition, is so fascinating. My notes define this as devotion that flows through a family lineage.
Right.
This means the guru principle isn't necessarily a stranger in robes. It can be the generational devotion baked into your culture. If you sincerely immerse yourself in the prayers, the humility, and the profound love that your grandparents and great-grandparents practiced, the tradition itself becomes the awakened master guiding you. You are absorbing the energetic imprint left behind by generations of sincere seekers.
The universe does not care about the aesthetics of your path. It cares about the depth of the surrender. Both the living master and the deep-rooted family lineage possess the capacity to shatter the transactional ego and forge that eternal link.
Okay, let's follow the roadmap for the soul that takes the guru path. You bypass the arcade, you arrive in the divine realm, the Ishtalok, and your residency is guaranteed for eons. You have millions upon millions of years ahead of you. But this begs a massive logistical question.
What do you do with the time?
Exactly. What do you actually do with that much time? The standard Western conception of heaven is largely passive. You lounge on a cloud, you play a harp, you experience unending leisure. Does the soul just sit around eating cosmic grapes for a billion years?
That passive conception of heaven is entirely discarded in this text.
Okay.
The roadmap reveals that arriving in the divine realm via the Guru Tattva is not a retirement. It is a period of intense, elevated preparation. True devotees do not rest in luxury. They are engaged in continuous, joyful divine service, perfectly aligning their individual will with the supreme will.
So they're working.
Joyfully working, yes.
Yeah.
They are refining their consciousness to a razor's edge. And then the text reveals another startling twist. When the Supreme is fully satisfied with their evolution, they are sent back.
Hold on. Sent back to Earth. But we just spent the last 10 minutes establishing that the whole benefit of the guru path was that you don't get evicted like the merit-based souls. Why are they going back to the mortal realm?
The geography of their return is the same, but the nature of their return is fundamentally, radically different. The soul on the merit path is dragged back by the laws of karma because their account is empty. They return as ordinary, confused humans, bound by the suffering of the material world, desperately trying to earn more merit.
Right.
The soul on the guru path does not return out of necessity. They return on a highly specific, targeted mission.
They aren't falling down the cosmic ladder, they're being deployed.
Precisely. The text explains this using the incredibly vast timescale of the Chatur Yuga. In ancient cosmology, a Chatur Yuga is a complete cycle of 4 massive cosmic epochs. We are talking about millions of human years.
Desatya, Trita, Dvapara, and Kali Yuga.
Yes. These highly elevated souls are held in reserve in the divine realm, and they only return to Earth perhaps once in an entire Chatur Yuga. They're deployed specifically when human civilization is teetering on the brink of total spiritual amnesia.
Like when things are really bad.
When entire societies need to be reconstructed, or when the divine is orchestrating a massive, world-altering event, a Leela on Earth.
They are the cosmic special forces. When the mortal realm is completely lost in the dark, the Supreme hits the emergency button and sends in the heavy hitters. And the text outlines 2 specific modes in which these souls manifest on Earth, and it ties directly back to how they found the Guru Tattva in the first place.
The symmetry in the roadmap is remarkable. The first mode of return is the great Guru. Those souls who ascended through the direct Guru Shishya lineage return to Earth as monumental saints, spiritual titans, or world-altering teachers.
Like who?
The source specifically names figures like Swami Vivekananda or Adi Shankaracharya. These are not individuals who just lead quiet, pious lives. They arrive like lightning strikes.
Right.
They possess an immense, undeniable power and clarity, and their entire physical life is dedicated to radically redirecting a lost society, tearing down false dogmas, and reconnecting millions of confused people back to the source.
They essentially come back to be the very thing that saved them eons ago. They become the guru for a new generation. But what about the other path? The ones who ascended through the quiet, generational family devotion, the Vanch tradition.
They return in a mode the text calls the ideal householder. And in many ways, their mission is even more difficult to execute because it requires profound subtlety.
How so?
Well, they return to Earth to set the ultimate, flawless template for human existence. They operate entirely within the messy boundaries of normal society. They get married, they endure the trials of raising children, they navigate complex family dynamics, they hold jobs and fulfill their civic duties.
Just living a regular life on the outside.
Yes, but they do all of it with such perfect internal detachment, such unwavering purity and grace, that their very life becomes a living scripture for the people around them.
For you listening on your way to work, this is the ultimate validation of your daily life. This path proves that you don't have to abandon society, move to a forest, and renounce all your possessions to achieve ultimate liberation. These ideal householders prove that you can reach the absolute pinnacle of cosmic consciousness while packing a lunchbox for your kid and paying a mortgage.
Exactly.
It is all about the internal mechanism. They are stabilizing society from the ground up, while the great gurus stabilize it from the top down.
They demonstrate that the material world is not an obstacle to devotion. It is the very canvas upon which devotion is expressed.
I have to play devil's advocate here, though. Looking at this strictly from a human, emotional perspective, this entire mechanism feels, I don't know, unfair.
Unfair. How?
Well, think about the journey we just mapped out. You spend your entire life on Earth meticulously practicing the 9 steps of Navta Bhakti. You manage the near-impossible task of awakening the Guru Tattva. You finally escape the exhausting, painful cycle of the physical world. You reach the absolute bliss of the divine realm.
Yeah.
And your ultimate reward after millions of years of preparation is being sent back down into the mud, the disease, and the chaos to manage humanity's mess. How is a deployment to a war zone considered a spiritual reward?
That is a very natural human objection, but it fundamentally misunderstands what happens to a soul during its time in the divine realm. The roadmap is not just tracking a change in location, it is tracking the immense evolution of the soul's capacity for love.
Okay, go on.
When you are a beginner on Earth, your spiritual practice is inherently selfish. You want personal salvation, you want to escape suffering. But as you reside in the divine realm, in the constant presence of the Supreme, your consciousness expands. Your ego dissolves. The desire for personal, isolated bliss begins to feel hollow. It is replaced by a concept the text calls samashti kalyan, which translates to universal welfare.
So you are saying they aren't forced onto a spaceship and dropped back onto Earth against their will. They evolve to a point where they are begging to go back.
Emphatically, yes. Their compassion becomes so vast that it mirrors the compassion of the divine itself. Think of a parent waking up at 3 in the morning to tend to a violently sick child.
Ooh, that's a good analogy.
The parent is exhausted, the physical act is deeply unpleasant, but they do not consider it a punishment. They do it out of an overwhelming instinctual love. These elevated souls look down at the chaos of Earth, and they do not see a punishment. They see their children suffering. They return not as victims of karma, but as joyful volunteers of infinite compassion.
That reframes the entire paradigm. They graduate from being mere consumers of divine bliss to becoming active distributors of it. But logically, that leaves a massive hanging thread. Let's say a soul completes its cosmic tour of duty. They come down as a great guru, they spark a massive spiritual revival, and then their physical body dies.
Right.
What happens next? Do they just keep looping between heaven and earth forever, trapped in an eternal cycle of cosmic management? How does a soul ever graduate from the matrix of service entirely?
This brings us to a monumental transition in the source text. The soul is preparing to step out of the structure of the universe altogether. The text states that the speed of this final phase depends entirely on the devotee's intensity of detachment.
Detachment from what, though? They are already completely selfless cosmic volunteers. They have given up personal bliss for universal welfare. What is left to detach from?
They must detach from the identity of being a servant.
Wow.
As long as you view yourself as a doer, even if what you are doing is monumental, selfless cosmic service, you are still holding on to a subtle thread of ego. The text explains that to burn away this final thread, the soul is assigned to serve even higher cosmic administrators. The specific entities mentioned are the deities of the Manvantara.
My notes show that a Manvantara is an incomprehensibly massive measurement of cosmic time, far larger than even a Chatur-yuga. We are talking about epochs that span hundreds of millions of years, overseen by massive cosmic intelligences.
Yes, the soul is essentially moving into the absolute highest echelon of cosmic administration. They are assisting the intelligences that manage the literal mechanics of the universe.
That's mind-boggling.
But even this staggering level of existence is still confined within a structure. It is still a reality governed by rules, forms, and boundaries. The ultimate destination of the roadmap lies beyond all of that. And the text declares that once these massive deities of the Manvantara are completely satisfied with the devotee's service, a fundamental shift is granted. The ultimate liberation occurs.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The text says they are completely and permanently freed from the trigunas. This is a highly technical concept, and if I'm reading my notes correctly, the trigunas are basically the source code of physical reality. It is the programming language of the matrix.
That is an excellent way to describe it. In ancient philosophy, the trigunas are the three fundamental qualities, or woven threads, that combine to create absolutely everything in material nature, including our psychology.
Let's break those three threads down.
Sure. There is tamas, which represents ignorance, inertia, darkness, and lethargy. There is rajas, which is passion, frantic activity, dynamism, and desire. And finally, there is sattva, which represents goodness, purity, light, and balance. Every physical object, every emotion, and every thought is a specific recipe of these three ingredients.
So a beginner on the spiritual path assumes the goal is to eradicate all the tamas and rajas and become 100% sattva, to be purely good and balanced. But if I am understanding the physics of this roadmap, even sattva is a trap, isn't it?
It is the most deceptive trap of all. Sattva is a chain made of pure gold, but it is still a chain holding you to the material world.
That's such a striking image, a chain of gold.
Even the deep desire to do good, to be pure, or to feel peaceful is a quality governed by the software of the matrix. As long as you're operating under the influence of any of the gunas, you're subject to the laws of cause and effect. When the text states that the soul is finally freed from the trigunas, it means they are no longer subject to the physical or psychological laws of the universe. They have been uncoded.
And the mechanism behind that uncoding is where this journey completely breaks the human brain. Let's trace the path so far to understand the contrast. From the moment they started doing Navta Bhakti on Earth, through their millions of years in Ishtalok and their return as cosmic volunteers, the soul has been operating exclusively in the Saguna realm.
The realm of form.
Yes, they have interacted with a divine reality that has a form, attributes, and location. They have been a distinct somebody serving a greater somebody. But the text says that the instant they are freed from the trigunas, they step across a terrifying boundary. They exit Saguna and enter the new guna realm.
Nirguna literally translates to without qualities or without form. It is the state of absolute, formless, limitless, infinite consciousness. There are no boundaries to measure. There's no concept of here versus there and no concept of me versus you. It is the raw, unmanifest reality that exists silently behind the loud illusion of the physical universe.
But wait. That creates a massive logical paradox. If a soul enters a realm where there is no form and no qualities, how can it still have a distinct identity? How does a mind that has spent eons attached to a specific shape and a specific mission suddenly exist as pure, formless awareness without just immediately dissolving into nothingness? It seems like an impossible contradiction.
The text does not shy away from that contradiction. It actually centers it in the penultimate stage of the roadmap. The soul doesn't just get blasted into the infinite void and disappear immediately. The source describes a highly evolved, paradoxical transitional state called nirguna sakar.
Which translates to formless yet with form. That sounds like a Zenko that defies basic geometry. How can something possess form and be formless simultaneously?
To explain the physics of this state, the text points to the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, verse 26. Krishna states that one who serves with unswerving devotion transcends the three gunas and becomes fit to be Brahman. Brahman being the ultimate infinite formless reality.
Fit to be Brahman, meaning they possess all the qualities of the infinite, but they haven't completely lost their boundaries yet.
Yes. In the state of nirguna sakar, the soul retains a subtle, almost impossibly thin layer of individualized form, a distinct point of perspective. But their internal reality, their consciousness, is entirely nirguna. They are internally infinite, but externally they still hold a microscopic shape.
Give me a visual for that.
Think of a single drop of water suspended over the ocean. That drop contains the exact chemical composition of the entire massive ocean below it. It's perfectly aware of its oceanic infinite nature, but it still maintains the surface tension of a single distinct drop.
Oh, that analogy grounds it perfectly. They are the ocean, but experiencing it from the perspective of the drop. And the text goes on to describe the psychological reality of existing in this state. It uses the term samatha, which is translated as absolute equanimity.
Yes, samatha.
The source explicitly states that for a soul in this state, joy and sorrow, honor and insult, a pile of gold and a pile of dirt, all of these intense dualities become exactly the same. They live in the world, they interact with the universe, but they remain completely and utterly untouched by it.
Untouched by the chaos.
I have to admit, when I read that description of samatha, my immediate reaction was intense resistance.
Really? Why?
Because on a spiritual resume, perfect equanimity sounds very enlightened, but practically, in real life, doesn't that sound deeply unsettling? If experiencing joy and experiencing crushing sorrow provoke the exact same internal reaction, aren't you basically just a sociopath? If you see a beautiful sunset or a horrific car crash and feel the exact same baseline emotion, haven't you just meditated away your fundamental humanity?
It is a vital pushback, and it addresses one of the most common misunderstandings of Eastern spiritual philosophy in the modern world. We are conditioned to equate intense emotional reactivity with being alive. We believe that feeling the extreme highs and the crushing lows is the definition of vitality. Therefore, we assume that samatha must be apathy.
Right, a numbing out.
We assume it is a defensive numbing, a psychological shutting down of the sensory system because the pain of the world is too much to bear. But the text is clear that samatha is the exact opposite of apathy. It is ultimate, absolute clarity.
How does clarity result in joy and sorrow feeling the same?
Think of the actual physical ocean. On the surface, you have massive turbulence, you have terrifying hurricanes, towering waves, and chaotic storms. That surface level represents our normal human emotional state. We are constantly battered by the changing winds of circumstance.
Which is exhausting.
Very. But if you take a submarine and dive 10,000 feet down to the ocean floor, what do you find? Absolute, unbroken stillness. The water at the bottom is still water. It is fully present. It is fully real. But the violent storms raging on the surface do not disturb the depths in the slightest. A soul in the nirguna sakar state operates entirely from the ocean's depths. They observe the joy and the sorrow happening on the surface of reality. They feel it, they understand it, but they recognize it as just passing weather. They are profoundly aware and immensely compassionate toward those caught in the storm, but they are no longer knocked off balance by the weather.
They are the endless sky, observing the clouds pass through, knowing the clouds cannot harm the sky. That makes sense. It is a state of supreme, unbreakable peace, not cold indifference.
Precisely. And this leads us to the absolute culmination of the roadmap. We have tracked this soul from a physical body on earth, practicing chanting and service. We watch them bypass the transactional heaven by forging an eternal guru link. We saw them serve for millions of years in Ishtalok, return to Earth out of pure compassion to stabilize society, rise to serve the cosmic managers, break free of the source code of the trigunas, and settle into the mind-bending, oceanic equanimity of formless form.
It is a staggering evolutionary journey.
But eventually, the physical universe demands an end. Even a subtle body in this highly evolved state must dissolve. What is the final event?
The grand finale. The text reveals that upon the final dissolution of the subtle body, this incredibly advanced soul is brought before the Supreme Divine one last time. And here they are presented with two distinct final choices for their eternal destiny.
These two choices represent the absolute pinnacle of what a conscious entity can experience. The first choice is called samipya seva, which the text also refers to as maintaining a swarupa.
Okay, let's look at that first option. In this option, the soul chooses to retain a microscopic thread of individuality. And the text is clear that they don't do this out of lingering ego or a fear of disappearing. They do it purely for the sake of continuing the relationship of love.
Yes.
They take on the actual majestic form of the divine itself, a swarupa, and they exist in absolute eternal intimacy, serving right beside the Supreme in the highest cosmic center.
They recognize that love requires 2 points of reference.
Yeah.
You cannot have a dynamic relationship of devotion if there's only one entity. They choose to remain the devotee so that the ecstatic exchange of love can continue forever. And the roadmap adds incredible detail here regarding their ongoing role in the cosmos.
What's that?
If the physical universe ever faces a crisis so severe that their specific energy is required, they manifest on Earth as God's greatest devotees.
The text lists figures like Hanuman or Uddhava or Garuda. These aren't humans trying to find God. These are beings who possess the literal, full power of the Creator, but whose entire outward identity is consumed by humble devotion. They are the ultimate champions, demonstrating what perfect love looks like.
That is the path of eternal intimate service. But the second choice, Sayuja Mukti, is where the concept of individuality is completely and utterly annihilated. This is the path of absolute merging.
This is the choice for the soul whose yearning is so intense that they no longer just want to be with the beloved, they want to become the beloved entirely. They choose to drop that final microscopic boundary. They dissolve their individualized consciousness completely into the limitless, formless, divine reality.
Returning to our earlier analogy, this is the moment the suspended drop of water finally lets go of its surface tension and falls into the vast ocean. The drop ceases to exist as a distinct entity. There is no more me. There is no more you. There is only the infinite roaring silence of the Supreme.
You would naturally assume that is the absolute final period at the end of a very long cosmic sentence. The drop is gone. The game is over. But as I reached the very last section of this research report, it revealed a caveat that completely blew my mind.
Oh, it's the biggest twist of all.
Even a soul that has entirely dissolved, a soul that has become the ocean, can still return to the physical world if the suffering of the universe reaches a catastrophic tipping point.
It seems impossible. If they are completely dissolved, who exactly is returning?
The text explains that because they are completely one with the Supreme, God can project a localized piece of himself out into the world. They emerge directly from the heart of the divine as a spark, born on earth as an Avataar, a partial avatar. They are a direct manifestation of God, containing exactly the specific portion of divine power necessary to fix whatever crisis is happening on earth.
The manifestation of an Anshavatar is profound, but the source saves its most staggering revelation for the very end. For the soul that chose absolute merging, the evolutionary journey does not even stop at being a partial avatar. There's one final, almost incomprehensible leap.
The manifestation of the purnavatar, the full avatar. Let's trace the physics of how this happens, because it is the ultimate secret of the text. The merged soul is functioning on Earth as a partial avatar, but they are driven by an intense, overwhelming, desperate yearning for world welfare. They feel the suffering of humanity as their own because they are completely aligned with the divine compassion.
Right.
Because of the sheer unimaginable force of that love, their consciousness expands even further. The vessel grows, they break the boundaries of being a partial manifestation, and eventually they manifest completely as a purnavatar, a full, unadulterated, infinite incarnation of the Supreme Godhead walking on Earth.
The text specifically points to Ram and Krishna as the primary examples of purnavatars. These beings are not highly evolved humans striving to reach the divine. They are the absolute infinite creator stepping fully into a fragile human frame. They are born possessing limitless cosmic knowledge, absolute mastery over the trigunas and the matrix of reality, and they are worshipped by human society as Sakshat Narayan God, directly incarnate.
The logical implication of this is absolutely staggering. Think about the arc we just traced. You start as a regular, flawed human being, sitting in traffic, trying to focus your mind by chanting and listening to stories. You refine your consciousness over millions of years. You merge completely, entirely into the infinite God. And then, out of sheer, overwhelming love for the suffering world, you reemerge as God.
It's beautiful.
The ultimate endpoint of being a devotee isn't just surviving the matrix or getting a VIP seat in heaven or even dissolving into the quiet infinite. It is the potential to actually become the full universe-creating avatar of God, born into a future age to save the very muddy, chaotic world you originally started in.
It is an infinitely expanding spiral. The roadmap reveals that the journey from the deepest, most radical humility, literally bowing your head to the floor and serving every particle of creation, inevitably leads to becoming the very supreme reality that the entire universe bows to. And crucially, it happens not out of a hidden ambition for power, but as the unavoidable physical manifestation of perfect, infinite compassion.
It completely shatters the standard linear narrative of religion. There is no end where you just sit and rest. Let's take a breath and try to synthesize the massive scale of this cosmic map we just traversed. We started with a physical body on Earth, using the 9 practices of Navabhakti to aggressively rewire our baseline attention.
We learned that relying strictly on the transactional merit system, the devtattva, is a temporary vacation that eventually evicts you. To bypass that, the soul must awaken the inner guru, establishing an eternal link that secures residence in the divine realm.
But that residence is a training ground. The soul transitions from seeking personal escape to accepting universal service, returning to the chaos of Earth across millions of years as a great guru or an ideal householder.
Having satisfied the highest cosmic administrators, the soul is uncoded from the matrix of the trigunas. They achieve the paradoxical state of nirguna sakar, observing the brutal dualities of the universe with perfect, oceanic clarity and equanimity.
And finally, upon the dissolution of all form, they face the ultimate choice of eternal, intimate partnership as a swarupa, or absolute dissolution into the infinite. A dissolution that can ultimately culminate in them returning as the purnavatar, the complete incarnation of the divine to save the world all over again. To ground all of this staggering cosmic scaling back into the human heart, the source text provides a quote from the mystic poet Sant Tukaram, and it captures the violent, beautiful essence of this entire process.
Tukaram writes, "Being a devotee is not ordinary. It is the journey of erasing one's ego to mold into God's shape. When you completely erase yourself, then only He remains."
When you completely erase yourself, then only He remains. All the complex mechanics we discussed today, the realms, the cosmic epochs, the software codes of reality, they are all just the detailed physics of that single process of profound erasure. I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to carry with you as you step back into the noise of your normal, everyday reality. Throughout this deep dive, we kept returning to that famous metaphor for spiritual enlightenment, the idea of the individual soul acting like a single exhausted drop of water that finally, after a brutal journey, falls into the vast ocean and disappears. It is a comforting image of ultimate peace. But based on the massive secret revealed at the very end of this roadmap, the reality of devotion is far wilder and far more demanding. Because if your devotion is pure enough, if your journey through this roadmap is true, that drop doesn't just disappear into the ocean and stay there enjoying the quiet forever. Eventually, out of a desperate, overwhelming love for all the suffering, confused beings still stuck on the shore, the entire ocean chooses to pour itself back into that single drop so it can return and save the world. So the question you have to ask yourself isn't just how you get to the ocean. The question is, where are you on that cosmic journey right now? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.